Okay, here's what your handout looked like from class. Now this is the same one I used in class, so some of the cones are colored, so we're just going to skip over to some other ones. You've got plenty of cones to practice on, but you should print this on whatever cardstock you like so that you have a good guide. Now the first cone we're going to color is going to be with the light coming straight from the front, so you're just going to kind of cut the cone in half, leaving like kind of a cone in the center. This is just going to be your white space, similar to like when we did the cylinders last month. So you're going to fill this in. For reference, I'm using G21. And then you're going to take your shading color, so I'm using G24, but whatever shades your first color, and you're going to cut each of those colored sections in half, trying to keep it as even as possible with just a darker line there. And then you'll go back to your original color to blend. So start over your shaded area. I usually focus on the edges first of the darker area, and then you're just going to fill the whole thing in, trying not to go over that white space too many times because you want it to appear lighter than the rest. Now for this other cone, we're going to have the light coming from an angle. So first I'm just going to kind of cut the cone in half with a line and then go ahead and fill in color on either side, but I'm doing it on the right side. So our light source is coming and shining then on the left side. Now on the other side, you're just going to kind of cut that area in half and fill it in through to the edge. Now I'm going to take my darkest shade, so I'm going to take my third darkest shade. So in this case I'm taking G28, and I think that sometimes it just helps blending when I do that, so I'm going to kind of a little closer to the outer edge, but I'm just going to draw a fairly thin line. Then I'm going to take my medium color, which is G24 in this case, and I'm going to kind of blend over that. I wanted my shadow a little bit darker than on when the light is coming straight on, because we just have more area to be shadowed, so that's why I used 3 colors on this one and not on the other one. So now I'm going back with my G21, my lightest shade, and I'm going to kind of blend that in, so again going over the edges first, and then I'm going to go ahead and shade over the whole thing, trying to not put too terribly many coats over the white space so we keep that area light. Again, don't worry about if it's absolutely perfect. This is practice, just to get the idea of cones. Now we're going to shade an image. I'm taking E42, and I'm going to just shade this like the light is coming directly from in front. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that there, and then draw a line on the other side. You can follow those little X's for a guide if you want, but I'm just going to fill that into the edge. Then I'm going to take my darker color, which is E43, and I'm going to just line right to the edge. This is a smaller image, plus a cone isn't very reflective, so you don't need to worry about the light wrapping around or anything. But do that and then go underneath the ice cream because it's kind of poofy. You're going to have a shade there. Going back to color 1 and just blend everything in. Remember, not too many layers over that center. Now your ice cream is a cone as well. It's just kind of flipped upside down, except for it has more shape to it than a perfectly smooth cone. So I'm going to take my E41, just a light color because I'm making vanilla ice cream, but you're still going to kind of cut the cone shape and leave that center white, only you're going to follow the bumps that are in it, which will make sure you can still see that in the cone shape. So I'm going to kind of follow that down and around. Take a darker color, this is just E43, still following that same shape, but this is just adding in that second darker color just like you did on the cones before. Just like that. Now of course you could be making a strawberry ice cream or a mint ice cream or whatever you want. I'm going back to my color 1 now to kind of blend anything out, just kind of going back over that a little bit to soften it. If you're using colors that are really close, you may not even need to do this step, but you can kind of just blend it out there. Now I'm taking a colorless blender and I'm just, as I call it, tornadoing, but just small circles right over that inner edge because I wanted to leave my center white since I was making a vanilla ice cream. You may want to take a really pale color, pink if you're making strawberry, you know, pale color, and kind of just center in there in the center to lighten it up. Okay, moving on. This is our dress image. So we've got 2 cones here. We've got a cone from the bottom and a cone from the top. They kind of create an hourglass shape, but we're just going to separate it into 2 cones. So taking your lightest color, just like we did before when we were taking the cone and cutting it in over to the side for the light source being on the side, we're just doing that. So just think of this like a cone again and just leave that space white. When you get to the top, you're going to do the same thing, but it's going to be opposite. And that's how you do an hourglass shape. So we're going to fill in this color here. Now you're going to take your darker color. And again, this isn't a reflective object, so I'm not as worried about leaving some of that light space on the side. And I'm going pretty close to the edge here and kind of outlining that outer part there and going underneath. But I'm also going to flick up where those loops are to kind of give the pleats that would be there. You can fill in a little bit at the bottom. And also shade underneath the belt because that would cast a shadow there. And then go along that, you know, opposing the cone that's on the bottom. Pretty easy. Now I'm going to go back. Oh, now I'm adding in a darkest color. Just a little bit at certain spots where I really want to make sure that I got a lot of depth. So right there in the bottom of the pleats, flicking up a little bit, right underneath the belt, right there in the corner. Just helps to give depth. Now I'm going back with my color 1 and going over that to blend. So I'm really focusing mostly on where I've got some of those shadows, and then make sure you keep light over that white space. Kind of blend down a little bit. Feel free to pause this at any time if you need to catch up. I have to keep the videos under 10 minutes to upload to YouTube, so it is pretty quick. Okay, to color in my belt, I'm just taking my medium color, this is B14, and just kind of filled it in, and then dark color right there, just in the edges. It's a small space, you don't need a lot of layers, but that's just to kind of break it up a little bit. Okay, last image. We're using a tree that is pretty flat, so we're going to cut the tree in half with our color and go ahead and just fill that in. Now I'm going to take my medium color then to add this extra dimension. Now I know when we colored the cones, I used my darkest color. I'm going to use my darkest color here in a minute to do a little bit more definition underneath the branches. So just fill this in then with G24, and then I'm going to use my lightest color to blend. I'm sorry that the camera got so shaky. I have no idea why it did that. I must have been bumping the tripod while it was filming. But I'm just kind of filling everything in with my G21, my lightest color. Now using the chisel tip of the G28, I'm going to go in and add the branches in, kind of dragging them into the tree a little bit. That's going to help give a lot of definition. And then you'll go there at the bottom. You may need to switch back over to the brush tip to kind of shadow in just the bottom part of the tree. I'm not even going all the way across. I'm kind of flicking in from the corners. Now on the darker side of the tree, remember the side opposing the light source, I'm still going to use that G28, and I'm going to drag that color down from where we drew those lines in, down onto the branches, not all the way because light's going to hit those tips. On the other side, I'm going to use G24 and do the same thing. I'm not using G28 here, even though I use the G28 for the strong definition of the branches, just because I don't want that side to get too dark. Going back on the other side with my G24, my middle color again, I'm just going to kind of blend out that darkest spot there. Blend, blend, blend. And then on the lighter side of the tree, I'm going to use G21 and do the same thing. So we're just kind of doing the same process to both sides of the tree, only keeping one side dark and one side a little lighter. And then I'll go back in with G21 kind of over the whole thing just to make sure that I get that good gradient blend. Now this is optional, but if you feel like you've lost your space you left white, you can go in with a colorless blender or a G20, a light pale green, and kind of blend over that to lighten the color a little bit. If you feel like it gets too light, you can then go back on top with your G21 and just kind of blend it out. Your paper will be wet enough that it will all kind of blend together nicely.